Good morning, students. So today we'll start with Indo-US relationship. Now, if we talk about India's relationship with US, then during the Cold War years, India found itself on the opposite side of the divide from the US, and that we all know because India also signed a treaty of friendship with Soviet Union. Now, after the collapse of Soviet Union, India suddenly found itself with no friends at all in the international areas, in the international environment. So, those were the times when India actually decided to liberalize its economy and integrate it with a global economy. This policy and India's impressive economic growth rates in those years basically made India an attractive partner for a number of countries including United States. Now, it is very important for you to understand that two factors came up at that point of time, which relates to the technological dimension, the role of Indian American diaspora. Diaspora are the people who spread from one original country to the another. So how many Indians are basically residing in US and what contribution are they giving to the US economy? Okay, so here you see that US absorbs around 65% of the India's total exports in the software sector. Then you have 35% of the technical staff of Boeing is estimated to be of Indian origin. You have 3 lakhs Indians working in the Silicon Valley. 15% of all the high-tech startups are by the Indian Americans. Now, what does this relationship suggest? That if you took into notice the ideas of various people, the thinkers, the viewers, the observers, then they suggest that India should remain aloof. The Indian analysts who see international politics largely in terms of military power, they say that India should better prefer aloofness from Washington and it should focus on its, increasing its own national power. Others say that it's a big opportunity for India to extract benefits while maintaining its good relation with US. They say that it is better to extract the benefits than to be a loser in the international environment. A third group of analysts say that India should take the lead in establishing a coalition of countries from the developing world. Okay, and over time, this coalition would become powerful, so they may succeed in weaning the hegemon away from its dominating ways. So such are the views about Indo-US relationship. If you see Indo-US relationship in the present time also, I think you all must be aware when Donald Trump visited India. Right. So out of 3 of the 9 US presidents, during 1947 to 2000, the years, they have visited India. Every president in the last 2 decades has visited India at least once. So many reasons could be ascribed to a higher frequency of visits. A shift in the global geopolitics in the post-Cold War era, India's economic ascent, the rise of an assertive China, and India's place on the global high table. So relations between India and the US have transformed from being estranged democracies during the Cold War era to strategic partners in the post-Cold War era. Your question should be, ma'am, what is estranged democracies? See, US and India, though they are the oldest democracies and largest democracies respectively, they have remained detached during the Cold War. Okay, it is the present scenario where you see that US and India is quite aligned from each other. Okay. Now, the visit of US presidents has given many strategic convergence between India and US. Right, there are trade deals. Trade has been a major bone of contention between India and US. India has been referred by US as tariff king, which imposes tremendously high import duties. Donald Trump formulated America foreign policy on the economic dimension. It means reducing US trade deficits with major trading partners including India. In 2019 June, if you see, then Trump administration decided to terminate India's benefits under there's a scheme, GSP scheme, that is generalized system of preferences, which give preferential duty free access for over $6 billion worth of products exported from the country to US. So similarly, there are many areas. If you see US Pakistan equation, US has softened its position on Pakistan in the last 7 months. Okay, and due to the role Pakistan can play in Afghan deal. But there are certain areas where US has supported India as well. Okay, as in if you see the present Uri incident, you see the Kashmir relation. So on these areas, US has been little soft or has been neutral. In these times, in the present times, I'm not talking about the times earlier. Okay. So that is how Indo-US relationship has been conducted, and that is why some say that India should maintain aloofness, some see it as an opportunity, and some say that India should take a lead in establishing a coalition of countries like NAM. Maybe India can again establish a coalition of countries from the developing world, which can be powerful over time with the times as it passes. Okay. Next, therefore, what do we understand basically with overcoming the hegemony? Now, see, by far you understand that in international politics there is no world government. Like the government of a country we have, there is no world government in the international politics. International politics is politics without government. There are some rules, some norms which are known as the laws of the war, that restrict but do not prohibit the war. Okay, but few states, they will entrust their security to international law alone. Now, no single power is anywhere near balancing also the US militarily. A military coalition against US is even less likely given the differences that exist among big countries. So none of these countries are nearly to even stand in front of US militarily, which makes US very, very powerful. So how to overcome this hegemony? How to overcome the hegemony? Now the strategies put forward suggested that it is strategically more prudent to take advantage of the opportunity that hegemony creates. As in, we can raise our economic growth, increase the trade with them, we can exchange the technology, investment, which is best acquired only when we are working with them rather than against the hegemon. Okay, instead of talking against US, it is better to work with them. That will either enhance our productivity maybe, if not lessen it. Okay, or it may even give us the opportunity to work with them, plus to not become a threat against us. Why? Because see, if you are, I'm trying to explain you this sentence, which is a little confusing here. If you are working against US, it may be that US can go against you, right? And then your efforts will be against you only, as in your efforts here is the efforts against US. Okay, now this will make US against you, so your efforts are ultimately going against you, right? So it is better you cooperate with US in its strategies, in its work, and better take out your own benefits. Now, this is suggested that instead of engaging in activities opposed to the hegemonic power, it is better to extract the benefits by operating within the hegemonic system, and this strategy is referred to as the bandwagon strategy. Okay, now another strategy is to hide, which says to stay as far removed from the dominant power as possible. Now there are many examples of this behavior. You have China, you have Russia, you have European Union earlier. So all of these in different ways have stayed away, and they want to stay below the radar, as it were, and not overruly, not over rely or unduly disaffect the US. Now, this would not seem to be viable for a big second rank power. It may be attractive for small states. It is hard to imagine for mega states like, China, or let's say India as well, in population wise, to go and hide somewhere. It's not possible. But you can hide yourself with these efforts, maybe. Right? Then some people believe that resistance to the American hegemony may not come from states. So where they will come from? These will come from the non-state actors. The challenges to the American hegemony will emerge in the economic, cultural realms, and it will come from the combination of NGOs, because they are there for social upliftment. Okay, so it is not coming politically from any state, but rather it is coming from non-governmental actors, the NGOs, who are there for social welfare. Right? Now another thing, social movements, public opinion, it may arise from sections of media, intellectual person, educated mass, writers. Now these various actors can rise against the hegemony. They may form links across the national boundaries, including with Americans, to criticize and to resist the US policies. That is how the strategy will work. And finally, you will understand the concept of global village over here, which is where all the neighbors of the village headman, we all are the neighbors of the village headman. Okay, who is the village headman over here? We are all in a village. India, China, US, UK, France, all these powerful countries are neighbors. Okay, and who is the headman of this neighbor? US. So we all are, no, who is, yeah, that's fine, sorry. So the headman of the village is US. Okay, and we all are its neighbors. Now if the behavior of the headman, that is US, becomes intolerable, we will have the option of leaving the global village. Okay, but what is the matter over here? We will not have the option of leaving the global village, because this is the world we know and the only village we have. We don't have any space somewhere else. This is the only place we know. This is the only planet we reside on. We can't go and jump onto Mars with our billion of population. It's not possible. Right? So this is the only place we know. This is the only world we have. And resistance will then be the only option available. So at the most, what we can do is we can resist. Clear with everybody? Fine. Why is friendship important? Okay. Why is diplomacy important? Instead of directly opposing, it is better to work diplomatically. It is better to go smoothly, okay, in the international environment. Right? Okay, I hope the concept of global village is clear with everybody. Right? And these strategies to that hegemony creates, that is to extract benefits, to hide, which is nearly impossible, and third one, the actions coming from the non-state actors, and finally the concept of global village. Okay, so students, unipolar world is completed. Okay, your questions of assignments will be given to you. Do that, and in the next class we will start with Arab Spring. Okay, a very new topic for you all, and this is introduced this year, so we'll start with this in detail, and then this second chapter will be formally completed. Okay, all right, I'll stop here for the day. Thank you so much, students. If there is any problem, let me know. Thank you.